G'day team, welcome back to CEW.Manufacturing. I've complained for a while I don't have a suitable workbench. You may have seen me struggle with the sawhorses and bouncing things all over the place. Nothing stable enough, nothing does what I need it to do. So, one workbench, some assembly required. Let's get going. So I'm drilling all these plates here out to a 4.5mm hole. That'll give me a clearance over an 8-gauge screw that'll thread up into the plywood workbench top. If it's not strong enough to hold, then I'm just going to be able to drill this out to 5mm, tab it for M6, and then put a bolt in from the top. So I'll just lightly tack the whole workbench together, and this is on its back now, so the top's on the ground here. And I'm just using the 600mm wide boards to provide spacing for the shelf. So I'm just going to work through now and use this leg here as my datum because it's nice and square. I'm just going to tack the frame in place and then bring all the other legs in line and square to it, just one at a time. Alright, that's square enough for my skill level and my needs, so now I just need to go through and weld the whole thing together. So there's an old expression I think aptly sums up this situation. When the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I'm going to bond these two sheets of plywood together, and I'm going to be using a vacuum bag to apply even pressure to it. It's actually a good reason for doing it. There's a little bit of a bend in both of them, and I just want to draw it down flat. But, you know, whatevs. So I got it on my wood cutter at the hardware store and their big panel saw. I thought that was awesome and convenient, except I forgot the measurements for the shelf at the bottom was different from the workbench top. You know how they say measure twice, cut once? Well, the table was a little bit longer prior to this cut. Good thing these are only about $15 from Bunnings. It turns out those small screws I used to try and attach to the top are a bit too small, and they just strip down the holes. So I've drilled every single hole through, and now I'm about to go through and drill them all down, and then put in these little T-nut insert things that'll just go in and actually bite into the wood properly. Got one here as my test piece, and it all is nice and secure with a 5mm bolt in it. So let's just crack on. Look at that, it's changed colour. How cool is that? It's the wrong colour though, so I'm going to have to fix that. I'll tell you what it actually was. So my screws to the bottom board is about 2mm too long, and the local screw shop didn't actually have M5 by 14s, these are M5 by 16s. So what they suggested instead I'm going to do is put a lock washer and a normal washer on each screw just to get that 2mm out of there. This would be a real pain in the arse to do if I didn't have some nice flat surface to use, and I've now got my workbench. How good's that? I've drilled all these other holes here from 10mm up to 12mm as clearance holes. I couldn't do these ones here because the wood wouldn't be assembled at the time, but now it's all back together. I'm just going to run a drill through it and just clean up those holes so they're a bit bigger and just give it more clearance around the bolts. And you can can laugh at me as this goes bad. Fits in, no problems. Alright, so this side here is going to be the metal top, which is why it's about 6mm lower than the other side. One of my key design requirements is being able to weld straight onto the top, which means we need an earth plane. So that earth point is going to go through the wood here. So I'll drill a hole through the wood here, and then when the steel goes on top, I'll be able to put a bolt through that, and that'll be able to anchor this whole thing as an earth. Almost done. Time to add the top plate now and then screw it down. You know what they say, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. That's the easiest cut I have done with a hacksaw for a very long time. So that completes our workbench build. I'm pretty happy with this. It's so much better than those little things I was using before. My vise is solidly mounted. I've got all this workspace on either side of the bench. It's pretty good. Let me just show you through some of the features of it, and then we'll finish this video here. So the right hand side of the bench is 18mm of ply, followed by another 6mm of mild hot rolled steel. It just gives you a 24mm total height. The left hand side is the same 24mm, so it's nice and flush across there, but it's just made from 24mm of ply, two 12mm sheets you saw me laminate earlier together. There's a bottom bench down here. It's just slightly smaller and recessed inside the frame of the workbench. It's 12mm of ply on each shelf. You know, they're nice and solid, bolted in, not going anywhere. I have 4 different vise locations, so these countersunk screws here can be pulled out, and then the vise can be shifted from where it is right now into here. So we've got one on the steel section, we've got this one here which is on the steel section but bordering on the wood, then we've got one on the wood bordering on the steel, and then we have one on the wood here. Those are countersunk screws, just there just to keep anything from falling into those threads and just keep that from getting all gummed up. So when I pull these out and put the next ones in, those threads are always being clean and you won't have any issues. Another feature I pulled into this workbench here is under the back here. You would have seen it when we put the top on, but there's this threaded rod. So the threaded rod's welded into the main bench here, and will allow the whole thing to be electrically active as an earth point for me to weld straight onto this table. And because the vise is also connected to the table, it will also allow me to weld anything that's held in the vise, as long as the plastic soft jaws aren't in there. So that completes my workbench build. I spent way too much money on it, but it gave me what I wanted it to be. Anyway team, I'm just going to leave this here. I'm not going to do any lessons learned because fabrication isn't really my area of expertise. There's a whole heap of lessons learned. Pretty much if you saw me do it, don't do it that way and you'll be better off. As always, if you like my videos, please consider subscribing. Otherwise, have a great day.